Today, Freedom Central is talking to Brother Thomas about his work for the International Tribunal to Crimes of Church and State under the International Common Law Courts of Justice. Brother Thomas was recently appointed as a field advocate for common law in South Africa, and we're talking to him a bit about the work he's been doing. Brother Thomas, first off, tell us a little bit about your background and the journey you've been on and how you've gotten to this point.
Can we skip that part? It's a long story, and that'll be in the next book.
Oh, come on, you gotta give me a little bit more than that to work with.
Just like you, was born in the apartheid era, and as a child, I remember I just knew there was no truth. Okay, and I saw adults around me say one thing, but their actions were different. And I started questioning all of these untruths. I spent school holidays on a farm in the Free State, so I used to play with all the black kids, and I saw how farmers looked after their workers. I remember my dad was a very small farmer, but he had a community of 300 people living on his farm, and they had their community and everyone was happy, you know. And then coming into the cities and seeing the whites only signs and all of those things, these things raise serious questions. And I also believe that that's for many South Africans. So the reason why we are asking questions is because we come from a society of that where we realized that the status quo wasn't necessarily correct. So I started reading books because those are the only things that give you the truth. And if you don't agree with a book, you can read another one and compare. And so I became a very avid reader, and at the age of 12 I was reading autobiographies and probably reading about 20 books a month. Like everybody else, I was a victim of tyranny every single day of my life. I don't believe that any man, woman, or child on this planet today is not a victim on a daily basis. Just because of the decisions that we have to make or the justifications of our life based on a corrupt foundation. And this is all part of that redress, you know. So yeah, I got conscripted, ended up in the war in Angola, and that was a tragedy. It took me 20 years to put my life together, but what it gave me, it gave me the discernment of truth. And I slowly watched our economy start collapsing, and then 2.5 years ago, along came a man called Johan Uber. Now I'm sure many out there know who Johan Uber is, but sadly I only got to see his interviews about a month after he passed away. This was about 2.5 years ago, and it immediately switched me on. Now, us South Africans were quite isolated from the rest of the world, so we only caught on to this stuff 2.5 years ago. Believe me, we are catching up very quickly.
Yes, indeed.
So, from that, I also started seeing the economy fall down, and just to backtrack slightly, 2.5 years ago, when I realized all of these things, within a month I unplugged from the system completely, because I wasn't willing to accept and to contribute to this tyranny and to this plunder that's taking place, and imminent war. If we don't unplug them, we will be victims of war, you know. So I unplugged completely, and I moved into the tribal lands in the north, because that's where my heart is. I am a tribalist at heart, and I have a history with those people, with the artists, with the environmental groups there. I spent a lot of time working with all those people. I was lucky to be given a piece of land under the chief. Sadly, he passed away, but contracts started disintegrating, and I realized that I needed to find out what is going on. So I started actively researching commerce, because by then I'd already researched common law, natural law, sovereignty. Especially in Africa, with tribal customs being so strong, contrary to what most people believe in Africa, and especially Southern Africa, the decisions of who gets to manage the government is made by the rural chiefs, by the kings. The power lies with them. They have the swing vote. In Africa, the swing vote lies with the rural people. And they know where their power lies. Unfortunately, the province which I come from, which is up in the north, has been declared bankrupt, and it's been placed under administration by the Treasury. So my people said to me, Brother Thomas, what is going on? So I said, well, maybe I should go to Babylon and find out what's going on. So I came, and through the support of friends who took care of me and fed me and clothed me and supported my family, I tackled this massive task of going through commerce, not knowing about OPPT. So the interesting part is that I started engaging in what OPPT is doing now, but first of all on a community scale. So we created trusts, we filed these trusts with the Masters of the High Court, Common Law Express Trust, we went the Johan Joubert methods, we filed our claim of rights and intent, which is basically our law and our flag. Because remember, it's all about the flag. But we'll get to the remedies just now. And then Gift of Truth developed into, we were going to start transferring our trust accounts to offshore accounts, and then deposit security certificates and use that for public benefit programs. And a few months ago, just as we were about to launch it, somebody made me aware of OPPT. And then I saw OPPT and I realized that they are doing for everybody what we're trying to do on a very small scale. So I decided to, and the community, our community decided we are going to follow OPPT because we believe in it. And here comes the interesting part. A few months ago, about 3 months ago, I also discovered the ITCCS. And I wrote to the ITCCS and I notified them that we are standing under International Common Law Court of Justice and we are going to start using your flag. And if we don't get a response within 30 days, we take it to be your tacit agreement. And so we started using the OPPT and the ITCCS flags, and well, our documentation got through to you, and thankfully you approached us and you gave us the authority to move forward on the matter. Okay.
Well, thank you for doing so, Brother Thomas. Let's talk about some of the actions that you've been involved with, not just most recently, but some of the history of some of the things you've actually done so people can understand.
Okay, right. Firstly, we've got to go back into the history of South Africa slightly, which is, it starts with the 1955 Freedom Charter. Okay? Just to summarize what happened is, we had exactly the same scenario. Instead of today, we're having economic, what I call economic apartheid, as we say in Afrikaans. Then there was racial apartheid. So the people who were unhappy got together and they formed what was called the Congress of the People, And on their first meeting, there was 2,844 delegates, and they voted to initiate a referendum and to gain 1 million autographs, well, 1 million signatures, not autographs, signatures, and to demand the government to stand down because they were not willing to accept the current ruling party and how they were being subjugated. So we obviously know the story that eventually there was the Rivonia treason trials, and so Mandela, Chief Albert Luthuli, and those people were incarcerated. And through activism, through the 35 years, we ended up with the 1994 new constitution and the handover from the old government to the new dispensation. Okay. So the people decided that from 1994 they were going to put together a constitution in the spirit of never again. Okay. And the man to thank for this was Albie Sachs. Now, I'd just like to say I've been trying to get hold of Albie Sachs. His PR person does not respond to my requests. So if anybody out there knows Albie Sachs, please tell him to contact Brother Thomas urgently. I need to speak to him because I feel that he's the man who could be endorsing all of this. So Albie Sachs wrote our Bill of Rights, and funnily enough, our first Bill of Rights was called the Declaration of the Rights of Man. And as we all know, it was revenued from the living law into a fictional commercial law, and it was placed right inside our Constitution. Now we have a great Constitution because they made sure that through this journey of freedom and activism, we were going to keep this road open for future generations. So we're supposed to be living in a country of freedom right now, but it's not really the case. So in the interim constitution, which was the 3 years which the final constitution was written from 1994, in the interim constitution it stated that in order for the constitution to be completely perfected, within 3 years we had to introduce what was called the Promotion of Administrative Justice Act. Okay. And in my studies and in my research, I came across this very wonderful piece of work. And I want to thank him too. His name is Dr. Clive Plaskett. I haven't met him yet. I'd like to make contact with him and speak to him, but he is a Doctor of Philosophy at Rhodes University in the Eastern Cape. I don't know if he's still there, but he put a document together called The Fundamental Right to Just Administrative Action. Okay. And it's a thesis. It's 684 pages of the rights that we have to have just administrative action. Okay. Now, even if the system currently was not foreclosed on, even by those rules that were, there is no just administrative action in our entire system. I don't know how much time I have, Mel, but I'd like to just make a few, read a few excerpts from this document.
You have as long as you need, Brother Thomas. Take your time.
Awesome. So, it's called The Fundamental Right to Just Administrative Action. It says, the postscript to the interim constitution made this clear when it said that this constitution provided a historic bridge between the past of a deeply divided society characterized by strife, conflict, untold suffering, and injustice, and a future founded on the recognition of human rights, democracy, and peaceful coexistence, and development opportunities for all South Africans, irrespective of color, race, class, belief, or sex. The preamble of the final constitution speaks of it healing the divisions of the past, establishing a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental rights, and laying the foundations for a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people and every citizen is equally protected by law. Now, we know with legalese that a citizen is actually a fiction. It refers to your fictitious identity, which is your birth certificate or your ID, whatever you want to call it. But we assume that this word citizen means a living soul, a man or a woman, or a one people as we call it. So it continues, the next excerpt says, "It is into this conception of democracy that the new South Africa administrative law must fit. Indeed, one of its principal functions must be to foster and advance the search for the type of society which has been described in the preamble and in S1. The Constitution, the founding documents of the democratic South Africa, is the ultimate source of all state power, whether legislative, executive, or judicial. To be valid, every exercise of state power must have a legal pedigree that can be traced back to the Constitution." So, our supremacy of law in this country is the Constitution. Okay. Now, we know that it was written to represent the people, meaning the citizens of the state, fiction and all of that. However, Albie Sachs even took care of that. He left us a door within the Constitution. In the bottom of our Bill of Rights, it clearly states that this Constitution does not deny the existence of customary law, common law, or other jurisdictions. Okay. So, gift of truth, whenever we have interacted with anybody out there, we have said to them, we are doing this in the spirit of the Constitution, and we are doing this in the spirit of the Bill of Rights, but we are there in the Bill of Rights in another jurisdiction. Okay. And that jurisdiction, of course, now is international common law jurisdiction. So Clive Plaskett continues and he says, in South African Association of Personal Injury Lawyers versus Health to Chaskelson P., although probably not speaking only of official misconduct, made the important point that corruption and maladministration are inconsistent with the rule of law and the fundamental values of our Constitution, that these types of misconduct undermine the constitutional commitment to human dignity, the achievement of equality, and the advancement of human rights and freedoms, and that if such practices are allowed to go unchecked and unpunished, they will pose a serious threat to our democratic state. Okay. Remember, there's that very famous quote made in the case, I believe it was in America, Brontes versus Olmsted, where it says, if a government becomes a lawbreaker, it invites every man and every woman to become a law unto themselves. It invites chaos and anarchy. Okay. So we are doing this to avoid the impending chaos and anarchy. And it's very clear in our Constitution and in our fundamental rights to just administrative action that something is seriously wrong. I have written, I don't know, it must be 1,000 documents now. And on one or two occasions, it was not a rebuttal, it was just, what you're saying is frivolous and vexatious. But we have not had a single rebuttal over the last 2 years in any of our cases, and in fact, we have had 100% success in every single one of our matters. And we have defended people who were in positions of foreclosures, cars being seized, search warrants for properties. We managed to even turn search warrants away at the gate. So, getting back to the story is, I realized that using the promotion of administrative justice is the way to go. Now, what our promotion of administrative justice says is that they have to give you reasons. They have to give you answers. If you ask a question, they have to give you an answer within 30 days. If you go right to the top and you ask your questions and then they don't give you answers, then you now have what is called an empowering provision. And in the promotion of administrative justice, an empowering provision now gives you the right to create an administrative action. Okay, are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah. So then I went to look what is the definition of administrative action within this promotion of administrative justice. And what it says is an administrative action is a common law rule made by a natural man. So I thought, great, here's the answer. Awesome. So after going right up to notifying SARS and nobody responding, I decided that the supremacy of law and the heart of our nation lies with the Constitutional Court. So I was still with Gift of Truth community, and we had on 2 occasions through 2 different organizations, people filed a matter against the banks in South Africa, and the Constitutional Court vexatiously dismissed the case. And when I mean vexatiously, I'm not sure in this first case, but in the second case, the judge walked in to the desk, he knocked his gavel, and he said, case dismissed. He turned around and walked out. He refused to even sit down. Okay.
Wow.
So that just made it very clear something is very wrong in this country, because South Africa is a sovereign constitutional state, and if it is a sovereign state, well then the people in that state are all sovereign. So we then went, because you know the rule of law, everything has to happen 3 times, okay? So we had notified the Constitutional Court twice through 2 other organizations. So we sent them, Gift of Truth United sent the Constitutional an emergency final demand response. We're demanding a response, okay? That there's all this plundering going on, there's all this piracy and barratry going on by all kinds of agents who are laying claims in a corrupt system and throwing the people on the streets and causing harm and bringing loss, okay, which is against our constitutional law. So all the commercial courts are in breach of our constitutional supremacy of law on a daily basis, and this gets condoned. So we demanded a commission of positive, peaceful economic transition. So we told them, if you do not respond within 30 days to our demands, then you are now creating an empowering provision for us. You're saying to us quietly, tacitly, yes, you can go ahead, and now we're going to make an administrative action. Okay. An administrative action for South Africa, because of all the, people protesting and this, we don't want to, we're not there. We're free. We don't have to protest or petition anything. Remember, when you petition and when you march, you're now saying that there is opposition. Okay. And you're now saying that you are not free and you're creating conflict. But if you know you're free and you just claim it and you state it, there's no opposition. there's no conflict. Because you are the exact opposite of the other side. When two sides are the same, there's conflict and opposition, but we are not, so we have no conflict. So, remember, in this whole world matter, our governments are only middle management, same as with the country where you are in. Their hands are tied. They have to kowtow to the decisions that get handed down to them. If you take our Reserve Bank as an example, when Jill Marcus gets called to the IMF, she is not one of the 29 countries or representative of the first 29 countries who have voting power. So she basically gets told what to do, she listens in, and she comes home and implements. So I am sure that when we uncover all of this, we will even find that the President of South Africa was gutful of this whole situation. Okay. So now the people have to untie our Constitution's hands. We have to untie our judges' hands. We have to untie our peace officers' hands. And this is going to have to happen through a re-education process, and also do it positively and peacefully. There's no need for conflict. We want to avoid the chaos. We're not here to implement or bring chaos. So the action that we're taking is we're launching in the next 2 weeks the I Am Free campaign, which is basically your statement of freedom. Why do you believe you are free? I believe I am free in 3 lines. And would you like this to go towards a vote of your freedom? And would you like to have remedies to your freedom? And if they click yes, we're going to use that as our referendum. Okay. And in the spirit of the 1955 Freedom Charter, we are going to gather 1 million autographs. Okay. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to challenge other countries to follow suit and try and see which country in the world gets 1 million autographs first. So in the next 2 weeks, look out for the I Am Free campaign, folks. It will be on iamfree.biz. www.iamfree, all one word, .biz. Cool.
Thanks, Brother Thomas. Let's talk a little bit about what happened at the Constitution Hill.
Okay. Right. So this is amazing how synchronicity happens. Believe me, everything is happening like the beautiful wave that it's meant to be. Remember,
Yeah.
Gift of Truth filed this final emergency notice demand response on the 24th of June this year, and they had 30 days to respond, and the Constitutional Court were meant to respond on the 25th of July. Right. So in that, after the 24th of June, I was invited to become advocate of the International Common Law Court of Justice, and then I continued with the momentum, and I filed with the Constitutional Court, and I asked them if they could please be present in our venture that we were going to perform there. So what we did is we sent a notice and an order to the Constitutional Court notifying them that we were going to have the first South African common law hearing on Constitutional Hill. Now remember, the authenticity of something needs to be traced back to Constitution, to the Constitutional Court, or to Constitutional Hill. Historically, Constitutional Hill, which is in Braamfontein, just behind Hillbrow in Johannesburg. We had the old Fort Prison there, and I'm sure you could tell me a whole lot more about the old Fort Prison than what I could, but what I do know is that not only were the Boers jailed there, but the English were jailed there, the blacks were jailed there, and it's also the only prison in the world where Gandhi and Mandela were both jailed. So parts of the prison were kept, and this beautiful Constitutional Court was built. artist, I was, in those days, I tended for some of the work there, and guess what? I was the guy who made the gates for the judges' chambers of the Constitutional Court. I was a bizarre.
Wow. What did you do? Did you put it like with wood, or how did you? What are they made of?
No, metal work.
Okay.
I'll find the pics and then I'll post them on the site once I get okay with them. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I was one of the artists.
How symbolic.
Yes, exactly. And these coincidences go right back, but we're not going to go there now. I asked you, how long do you want the story?
No, it's beautiful. We love these things. These are the things that make it interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, so there's all of this beautiful art, and I also know that they provided a space outside the Constitutional Court where you could come and do as you please and say as you please. Okay. So we notified the Constitutional Court that we were going to have the first common law hearing of South Africa in the event space. We also notified the judiciary, that's the Justice Department of Constitutional Hill, and the director. We notified the Brigadier of Hillbrow SAPS that we were having this common law hearing, and we also notified them that please, we need to be allowed to do this peacefully, and we cannot seek permission through a permit because we are in a jurisdiction of our own, and that the Constitutional Court subscribes to the same jurisdiction as what we do. In fact, they are within our jurisdiction as a court for the people. Remember, a country only has a constitution and a constitutional court because it needs to protect the people. If the country was free, there would be no need for a constitutional court. We had no response for them. They did not come to our hearing on the 25th. So on the 25th of July, at 12 o'clock, within our hearing, we officially re-established international common law in South Africa. Next week we will make a public notice, because in order for something to be valid, it has to be gazetted. So under common law, if you want to gazette something, you just need to post it in the legal notices section in any national newspaper. That's all. And if it's unrebutted within 30 days, well, then it now stands as truth in commerce. Great. So now to our actions. Okay. And this is now, we're moving now to a little bit of remedies. For all you people out there who are in any of the international common law court countries, we have to remember this is a re-education program, and luckily for us in South Africa, we have bonded the One People's Public Trust and the International Common Law Court of Justice. We are a unit. Okay, we are the one people. The OPPT represents our commerce, our commercial side, our value, and our essence, and the ITCCS represents our law. And with those two things hand in hand, we will recreate this new reality of ours that's busy unfolding. So we're using the principles of OPPT, which is truth, integrity, responsibility, accountability, and transparency. And we are doing this all under the one law of do no harm, cause no loss. It's not a lot to remember. That's entirely it. That's what you need to remember for the new reality. Anyone can learn that in a couple of minutes. Am I right, Mel?
Absolutely.
No, keep it simple, you know. So what we're doing is, and this is maybe what you can do as well. what we did is we went to our SAPS, our South African Police Services, we went to their website. Now, if you go to the South African Police Services website, you will see that the first law that the South African Police Services subscribes to is the Constitution. Okay. We are lucky. Remember, we have a history of activism. We are the rainbow nation of activism in the world, and there is a highway of freedom that was put here for us by our forefathers who were all freedom activists. And Albie Sachs, bless his soul, that is why he got that Nobel Peace Prize. So for anybody out there, if you want to read an amazing piece of book by a really compassionate man, it's called The Alchemy Between Life and Law by Albie Sachs. I'm not sure what the ISBN number is, but just Google it. The Alchemy Between Life and Law. And what he states there is we must always seek reconciliation rather than retribution. Because at the end of the day, all we need is for the other person to acknowledge that he was wrong and to apologize. And then everything's okay. So going back to the SAPS, on our website, we have SAPS subscribes to the Constitution, and then we have an SAPS Code of Ethics, and there's an oath and a bond. So, our peace officers have made an oath and a bond as a peace officer. Okay. Now remember, in any country you've got two things happening. You've got the law of the land and you've got the law of the sea. To put it in simple terms, the law of the sea came along, arrived on the ships, created their forts, and when they found no resistance to their paperwork that they signed and no rebuttals, they built highways, sea channels into the land, and they established ships. And from those ships, such as ports and so on, they went forth and they overlaid the law of the sea over the law of the land. And that's where all our confusion lies. So now we have to separate those two things again. What is the law of the land and what is the law of the sea? So our peace officers who swore an oath and bond to protect us as the people under the Constitution and under the law of the land, were now employed, inverted commas, by the agents of the law of the sea, and they turned our peace officers now into law enforcement officers, and their job is to enforce contracts on the people, on the roads, searching cars, etc., etc. Okay. So we need to re-notify our peace officers what their primary goal here is. Their primary goal is to serve as a peace officer. Okay. So what we're doing for South Africa is, it's quite simple. We're notifying them. What we're going to do on our website, on the iamfree.biz, is we are actually going to start placing which people we've notified. Okay, and we're going to keep record of who we've notified. Remember, Admiralty law has been foreclosed since the 25th of December, so any act could now be construed as an act of barratry, piracy.
Okay.
On the open sea, it's all about the flag that you're flying. So here comes the ship, let's call it the Republic of South Africa, and you are in your little dinghy floating past, but you have your flag up. According to the rule of the sea, they have to pull out their book, they've got to look through it and say, okay, there, right, gift of truth or ITCC, oh, okay, they're common law jurisdiction. Sorry, we can't contract with them. But then they come on board your ship and they try and force you into a contract. That's piracy. It's no different to what's happening off the coast of Somalia. Am I right, Mel?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's the same thing. So now what we're doing is, if you notify, so I'm telling you guys out there, go to your peace officer's website, and if you take all of that information, drop it into a document, and you summarize it, you will see that it clearly tells you that they are supposed to act as peace officers and they're supposed to protect you. So notify them that. If they now willingly and knowingly and purposefully go and engage in breaking their oath under the law of the land by trying to enforce contracts for other corporations, they are now engaging in criminal activity. Am I right, Mel?
Absolutely, Brother Thomas.
Okay. So once they've been notified, they can't continue anymore. If they now step over that line, you know, under Admiralty law, there's this terminology. If you plunder, you're a hero. But if you get caught behind enemy lines, you're a coward, and they will close the doors on you, and you will be left to the dogs. So now, this man has to take full responsibility and liability for his actions, because he's actually now, as a law enforcement officer who's trying to use a law that has been foreclosed on, he is now actually impersonating a peace officer, right? He's a crook, he's a criminal, but now he's wearing the uniform of a peace officer. He is impersonating a peace officer, and he's breaking his oath. And I promise you, if this happened 200 years ago, or during the revolutions, these people would have been strung from the nearest tree. Am I correct?
Absolutely, but the fight for freedom's been ongoing.
Yeah, so that's the one thing. It's the same with the judiciary, okay? If there is a new law in place, guys, start notifying all the judges, right? There is a new law out there. Admiralty law has been foreclosed on. International common law is the superior jurisdiction at all times. And in our courts, they say, I'll read it to you, it says, the courts must always assume the law to be correct. Okay. The court always, the judge never questions the law. Right. But if we don't notify him, hey man, there's a new law out there, and if you're going to continue using the old law, then you're going to get into serious trouble. Take 1994, for example. Can you imagine if the judges said, no, we're going to carry on using the apartheid laws in the new dispensation. We refuse to accept the new laws. That's ludicrous. So they have to accept the new laws because nothing has been rebutted. You know, we've sent out thousands of documents and there's been no rebuttals. So from the feedback that I'm getting, I'm quite certain that most of our judges out there would love to re-establish their courts or repurpose their courts as what they were originally meant to be, and those were common law courts by original jurisdiction. Okay. I mean, all our courts are now in South Africa are commercial courts. The only court that is supposed to represent us as the one people is the Constitutional Court. And believe me, when I went there for the first time 5 weeks ago, it was like a ghost house. There is nobody there. There's this huge place with all this beautiful art, with this rich history, and only if 1 or 2 tourists walk through there every day. It's empty. Where are the real people? Everyone's acting as fictions, and they're asking why are they treating us as fictions, because our Constitutional Court is supposed to be so busy. Anyway, so I believe that their hands are tied, and many of these judges will move over. So what we're also going to do is we're going to invite them to take the first step. I mean, if we had the funding right now, we turn it into a competition. We say, right, the first judge to contact the International Common Law Court of Justice and say, right, I want to repurpose an original common law court, we give him R1 million. And we do the same for the first peace officer, who now re-swears his oath that he'll only be a peace officer. He will no longer be a law enforcement officer. How's that for an idea? How do you
I love it.
No? This needs to be fun, guys. This needs to be light. The heavy stuff are behind us.
Yeah.
We're over the hill now, and this is just going to change positively. Don't listen to all the doom and gloomers out there, believe me. This is your reality, and you have the power to recreate it. If you don't believe me, go and watch a video by a great man called Greg Braden. It's called The Science, as in maths and science, the science of miracles. And we have now proven scientifically that you and I, we create our reality. And when that button switched on, that is what gave me the power to be able to create this reality right now. Because I realized this is my reality and I can create it. So I'm just rewriting the script. And we're all rewriting the script right around the world. There's no us or them. There's only us. Okay? We're all in the same boat. At the end of the day, when all of this is uncovered, I'm sure we are only going to find maybe a handful who were actually the oppressors, the true oppressors. Am I right?
Absolutely. And you know what else you're going to find? There are many people who are working against their will, but they're in positions where kids are in private schools, wives used to a good life, and they just couldn't sell out.
Exactly, that's all. So guys, don't be afraid. Step forward. But right now we're only seeking people with remedies, okay? If you have questions, go and educate yourself. So if you want to educate yourself, there's only 3 websites to go to. The one is www.iuv.com. From there, it will lead you to all the other places. The other one is www.itccs.com or .tv if you want to see some good footage soon coming from the land of South Africa.
We look forward to it.
And then, the third one is obviously freedomcentral.info, www.freedomcentral.info. If those 3 websites blow the whistle, then you must know, run for the hills. I'm joking, please. There's nothing to run from but yourself. There's nothing to fear but fear itself, okay? So, calm down. Now, a good piece of advice, one good piece of advice that I learned right in the beginning was, we know that the game is, but it's a 19th century game they're trying to play. It's called Divide, Conquer and Rule. And kind of mulled over this, and I realized the key tool, the key weapon that is being used against you as the one people is to focus your energy on the hows and the whys of what's happening. Okay? So, that's where conspiracies lie. Conspiracies lie in the hows and the whys. So, it keeps you all nicely distracted so that you don't have any time to focus on the remedies. Okay? So, there's too much confusion out there. That's why I'm not going to go into spirituality or any of that stuff. Just straight, plain, practical stuff. Number 1, when you open a website or when you open a document, look at it and ask yourself this question: does it provide you with a remedy? And if the answer is no, discard it immediately. There's no time for hows and whys. We've done that. It's old rhetoric. We know the hows and the whys. Now we've got to focus on rolling out these remedies that are coming our way. So keep your eyes out for the remedies. And that's about it.
Wow, thank you. Brother Thomas, that is a fantastic interview. Thank you so much. Brilliant material there and very practical guidelines for people in South Africa.
Thanks, Mel. I'm just one of the people seeking the truth, like the 410 million that have already gone to iub.com. Great. Keep it up, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And we look forward to more of your work, so do keep us posted. And of course, as and when resources become available, we'll be helping you to repurpose that constitutional building in South Africa.
Oh, yes. By the way, guys, for South Africa, for the moment, Gift of Truth will now just be the media. So if you want to see any media press on what the ITCCS is doing in South Africa and what we're doing for OPPT, other than the OPPT sites. Okay, so in South Africa there is Gift of Truth, one word, .wordpress.com, and then you can also go to OPPT-SA.org and just Google any of the other OPPT-SA sites. There is another one. Okay. Great. And yes, good luck to everyone out there and see you on the other side.
I will be there with you, Brother Thomas. Thank you ever so much for your time today, and it's been an honor and a privilege to get this interview from you. We'll speak to you again.
Oh, thanks, Mel. Thanks for your support, really.
No, thank you for you. You have no idea how valuable you are to us.
Awesome, but there's now in South Africa there's thousands of us, okay? And one more thing, last thing. Just 2 weeks ago I went onto the internet and I googled Brother Thomas, and I see there's a whole Brother Thomas brotherhood out there. There's hundreds of Brother Thomases, all with their own little piece of philosophy. So hey, to all the Brother Thomases out there, have fun.
Hilarious.
Thanks, Mom.
You're welcome. Speak soon.